public-private partnerships' economic potential.
Ambassador Green, welcome.
Thank you. Good
Thank
to be
you for
here.
joining us. So I owe you an apology right off the bat because I stole from you. I spoke with you earlier about why private partnerships are so important, and you said something that I thought was so quotable that I mentioned it this morning. I used it in a LinkedIn post, and I didn't cite you. And it goes like this: the genius of the American idea is the creativity of the private sector. We're the envy of the world for it, and it should be at the heart of our policies and programs. That's poignant. Could you elaborate a little bit?
Well, so let's remember why we do all this. Two things. First off, when it comes to foreign assistance, the purpose of all foreign assistance is ending its need to exist. Second part is that private enterprise is still the greatest power on earth for lifting lives and building communities. And when you bring those two together, you've got something. It's universal, it's what we all believe in, and it produces the best results.
Fantastic. We've been using the phrase public-private partnerships a lot today. You don't really like that term.
Yeah, no offense, I hate the term.
What's the right term we should be using?
Collaboration. So the reason I don't like public-private partnerships is it's been used for many years really to capture the grantor-grantee relationship or the contract or recipient relationship, and that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about collaboration. So the old style public-private partnerships are where agencies like USAID designs a program, gets it all filled out, does all the details, dots the I's, crosses the T's, and then comes to business and says, can you do this for us? And business says, well, wait a minute here. You never actually asked us about what it is that we can do and what we can do together. Collaboration is simply involving private enterprise in the front end of the process and saying, look, these are the outcomes that we have resources to put towards. What are your ideas? What are you doing already that we can align with? And that's what produces, I think, the best results. And again, accelerates what I always call the journey to self-reliance, because we want to help others take this on and lead it.
You've had a lot of field experience. You're ambassador to Tanzania. Mm-hmm. What are some of the deficits that you've seen in some of these environments where you thought we need to fix this, we've got a problem, and it's going to be hard just to do with development work, with aid, where we need to bring in a private enterprise to help solve the issues?
Well, so what does private enterprise bring to the process? Private enterprise brings competition. It brings nimbleness and flexibility. Governments are not known for being nimble. That's not what governments do. We work on these long, drawn-out cycles. What we can do is incentivize, and that's what I think is the appropriate role for government, is to incentivize investments, to catalyze investments, and what we try to do is think of the outcomes that we all want to see, and then again tap into the nimbleness and the resources that private enterprise brings, and we'll get the results much faster.
So I asked Henrietta this question earlier, the esteemed Henrietta Fore, who joined us earlier. Who moves faster, business or government? And there's just no question there.
There's no competition.
So we need to move at the speed of business, mm-hmm. and galvanize these private sector engagements. So you talked about how we shouldn't spoon feed. Here's the program. Here's what we want you to do. Go in and do it. So what do we do? How do we better form these partnerships? And I believe I loved what Gargi Ghosh of Gates was saying earlier. We're really good at pronouncing, we've got a partnership, toast, press conference, and then then stasis. How do we ensure that we can continue to move forward and that you get these private sector businesses and enterprises engaged?
Well, first off, it's to understand what private enterprise is doing, what the presence of private enterprise in a particular area is doing. An example I heard this morning as I was coming in, There is a drone business that is known for its ability to deliver small packages anywhere in difficult settings. They have now partnered with the Elton John AIDS Foundation, and they are able to deliver HIV meds to communities with high-risk populations in the span of an hour. So we're not having private enterprise do something that is out of character for what it's doing. It's understanding what they can do, understanding where they're doing it, and see if there's an alignment in purpose. It's good for them, it's business, and it's good for us, we achieve our results.
Great. And what would you like to see from private sector enterprise engagements going forward? What are some ways that we can streamline the process? Can we improve on the narrative of what we're offering and how we engage? And maybe you could explain some of your thinking on that.
So yes, we need to do a better job in our narratives. I always shudder when I read news about announceables. So what's the announceable? The classic announceable coming out of Washington, D.C. You know, so-and-so announces $100 million for Kenya. Okay, what does that mean? Instead of announcing outcomes and goals that are being sought. So it's being very clear about what it is that is, what success looks like, what the outcome is that you're looking for. That should always be the lead, and then turn to the private sector and say, what are your ideas for getting there? What we seek to do in private sector engagement is co-creation, collaboration, co-finance, risk sharing, where we get inside a room, go to a whiteboard and say, hey, look, we've got money for water systems in this community. What do you guys think? What do you got? And then you can actually sit down and jointly draw it up. You'll get better results. The other thing that we need to do a far better job of is mentoring local businesses and supporting local businesses. Remember, the end goal here is not simply to empower U.S. businesses to do things. It is to instead empower local businesses, local governments to lead this. This is their country, and we need them to lead. We can help them along the way. We can usually bring technology to bear. We can bring some startup resources. We can help them measure. We can do some matchmaking. Those are things that we can do and we're good at. But at the end of the day, what we want to do is incentivize local businesses to be mentored and to take things over.
That's a good point. I know you feel strongly about empowering and engaging Foreign Service nationals in a lot of these endeavors and locally engaged staff in these efforts. Why is that? They're that much more involved, much more vested interest?
So it is the great untold story of success in the Foreign Service and in international development. USAID calls them Foreign Service nationals. State Department calls them locally engaged staff. They do yeoman's work. They're the ones that produce work. They're all over the country. They're the real ambassadors. We don't talk about them enough, and quite frankly, I don't think we give them enough authority. Nor do I think we compensate them very well. It's not only good for achieving results, they will one day be in the host country government. They will be ministers one day. So when we invest in Foreign Service nationals, we're not only investing in a program, we're investing in the next generation of leaders in that country, and that's really what's in our interest. That's how we achieve the best results, is having host country partners who have the experience of working with private enterprise and with whom we've invested and exposed, quite frankly, to the values and principles that we hold dear.
Doesn't every ambassador say, these people are fantastic, we don't pay them enough, and then the ambassador has to move on? I'm just wondering, how do you change that cycle?
It is true. And you're right, you know, one of the problems when you get to the chief of mission level, the ambassador level, you're only there for a relatively short time, right? And then you're already looking on to your next post, and that's unfortunate. It's something, quite frankly, we need to do back at Maine State and at USAID and make that a core part of our approach. I think in my tenure, I think we were better than we were before and not as good as we need to be, hopefully making progress. But again, I can't emphasize enough, investing in these host country nationals on the front lines is the right thing to do. It's also the smart thing to do in so many ways.
That's great. I'd love to ask you about some programs that you, while you were administrator at AID, are proud of, partnerships. But before we get there, I wanted to talk a little bit about, not to get too political, but talk about the bipartisan nature of this effort. You're a Republican. I didn't talk about this with Henrietta when she was on stage. I meant to bring that up. Is there politics around this effort? Is it nonpartisan, bipartisan? Where we could be coming up on change depending on what happens tonight in the next couple of months. We might not. Will this effort and this mission survive?
It has to be nonpartisan. So one thing I am very proud of, what we tried to do at USAID, the reforms that we tried to bring about were all led by our career staff, not our political staff. Because if it's led by political staff, it lasts about as long as the administration. And making it clear that we are investing in the system, that we are trying to stand on the shoulders of those who came before us and make the entire effort better, to me, it's the absolute key. And I will say that Capitol Hill cries out for it. I was very proud of the relationship that we had, both sides of the aisle. Being able to meet with members from both parties in both houses and say, hey, look, this is what we're trying to do. We're going to have some differences. What I always found is if you're honest and you talk about where it is that you want to go, even where there are rubs, you'll find a stronger partnership and a greater tolerance level for risk, which is something else that we don't do very well. We're very,
Right.
in a hyper-partisan environment, we're very risk-averse. Everybody's looking to blame somebody. We screw that up all the time. We need to be willing to say to members on both sides of the aisle, if something doesn't work perfectly, we need to be able to say, yeah, look, this is hard. This is really, really hard. If you want us to work in Denmark, we can work in Denmark. But we're working in hard places. We're doing the best we know how to do. Be open about it. And the other part to it is we need our politicians to say, okay, if it's based upon logic and it's based upon available information and a good effort, it shouldn't be finger pointing.
We need more of that, I think. Sources say that when you first came into USAID, everyone was
Scared to
fearful that
death?
you were going to pull everything apart. That source is you, by the way. Why didn't you?
Because I never thought that was the role, right? I thought the role was to try to take a look at what we were doing well and build on it. What I did want to do, USAID had gone through realignment every 20, 25 years, and we were arguably overdue. My goal was to try to rationalize and bring things and make them more effective, and to stop things that don't work, but to double down on those things that are working. And I hope we took some steps in that direction. I hope we made things a little bit better. And I can say that every former administrator, there was a fraternity/sorority. We're perfectly willing to answer a call and say, hey, look, this is why we did this. You may not agree with it, and you may make a change, but at least you'll understand the logic. And I think that's something very important for all the administrators going forward.
That's an august club to be in. We only have a minute left, and I meant to ask you the hard example, probably a million projects that you're proud of, probably a million that you're not so proud of since you're so transparent and open. If I were to put you on the spot, though, and say one thing, you brought up the Elton John AID effort, obviously, earlier. What's a partnership example you would hold up as something we could try and emulate going forward, if I could ask you to think back into the data bank?
Being administrator is an incredible honor. Love the job, love the team I worked with. We faced lots of trying moments and difficult moments. But I think working with local businesses and local organizations to give them opportunities to show what they can do. And we were talking about it, the panel before us, you and I are both going to be working for her someday. She's extraordinary. That's the reason to be optimistic. World's on fire. There are lots of things that aren't going well. But when I look at young people and I look at the promise of technology and the power of private enterprise, I'm excited.
Excellent. I'm excited as well. Ambassador Mark Green, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Yeah.